Hi there, I'm Jason Gordon from Orion Learning, and welcome to this. This is the latest installment of our Learning Leaders series. I'm delighted to be joined today by Andrea Carroll from SEAI, which is the Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland. And we've worked with Andrea on the SEAI Energy Academy, which I'm sure you'll hear some more about today through the course of this conversation. So it is an online training resource to help businesses reduce their energy courses. So perhaps before we sort of into the 5 questions today, Andrew, maybe you could introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your learning journey to date.
Okay. Hi, my name is Andrea Carroll. I manage the Small and Medium Businesses Programme for the Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland. And I suppose what part does learning play in that? The task that I've been given in my job is to provide support and training for over 200,000 businesses in Ireland in the SME cohort to reduce their energy use and reduce their carbon impact. So no small feat at all for such a wide scale of businesses. We have lots of ways that we've done that previously, but I suppose I was tasked with finding a new way of engaging such a large number of businesses.
So it's a large project and quite a large learner base there with over 200,000 businesses involved. So
yeah,
diverse demographic to try and target. So first question we've been asking people is, what does learning that works mean for you? And at Orion, that phrase is quite dear to us as part of our DNA, this concept of learning that works. Whenever we engage with an organization, we're trying to find out what does learning that works mean for you? What does success look like? What does good look like? And what are the business outcomes you're trying to achieve? So what does that phrase, learning that works, mean for you?
Okay. Yeah, I guess this is something that it's not the way that I had necessarily thought in the approach that I was taking to the task that I have, but ultimately it actually ties up the approach that we're taking to supporting all these businesses in a very neat way. Learning that works for me, I suppose, means making sure that we have opportunities that all businesses in Ireland can avail of to make a real difference to the energy use in their business. But that's really at a time and a place that suits them. Typically, we had face-to-face training, which is really important for a business that's already willing to commit time to reducing their energy use and their carbon impact. But if you're a small business, let's say hairdressers, it's really difficult for you to get yourself and your employees to take a day or two out to attend training. So it was really important for us. Learning that works for us is learning that is flexible and suitable to what our audience actually needs, and to allow them to avail of the very high quality training that is available through SEAI, to reduce their energy use and climate impact overall.
Yeah, so there's a real sort of outcome end of that there that you're trying to achieve. It's not just business outcomes, it really is environmental, it is all about sustainability. So they're very important outcomes, not just the individuals, but everyone.
I suppose it's in the DNA, I suppose, of our business model, but it is about the learning for the user in the end.
Yeah. Well, sort of thinking of the course there, like a lot of times we talk to organizations, and they're very much focused on their staff. So they have a very defined, we have 500 staff, 1,000 staff, and they know the facts and figures, they know the makeup of them and all sorts of analytics. But what you're saying there, you're trying to engage with over 200,000 businesses across Ireland. So that's such a diverse demographic. It's rural, it's city centre, it's older people, younger people, it's part-time staff, full-time staff, people who are very digitally mature, people who barely know how to work their phones. So that's sort of demographic. Coming to the next question, thinking, what do you think makes a good learning experience for that sort of demographic?
Yeah, so I guess this was definitely one of the challenges that we had, and it was the first thing that I suppose you have to know is who your end user is. And like you said, a lot of people who are typically using your services might have a cohort of employees that they're trying to train, whereas we were trying to think of the full range of people who care about energy use, who don't care about energy use, who understand climate, who don't understand climate, who are digitally focused and who are not digitally focused. So I suppose how we approach that is the first thing that I think makes a good learning experience, and how we approach that is by thinking about the end user. So for me, the end user was really the small business who isn't engaged on this topic. You can think nearly as the lowest common denominator, but the reality is that that's most businesses in Ireland who aren't really focused on this as a topic. So for me, a good learning experience for them is one that's free, that's quick, and that's really easy. And that was what we looked for when we were developing this particular learning experience for our users. We also wanted to make sure that we availed of all media that's available to people now. So even though people might think that they're not that digitally competent, maybe they're not using a laptop all the time. Like I said, if you're working in a coffee shop or you're working in a small manufacturing company, you might not be on your laptop or your computer every day, but guarantee you're going to be on your phone. So making sure that we availed of all media possibilities, that was really how we thought that we could create a good learning experience for people.
Yeah, I think taking that time to think through, you know, what are the pain points, this demographic, what are the obstacles to learning, and, you know, where's their sort of baseline, where are they at knowledge-wise, and using that as your springboard, as it were, to go into the project.
Yeah.
It's so, I may be sort of anticipating the answer here, because I know that the learning, the academy was, I think it was just yesterday this was launched, wasn't it? This is very sort of
fully launched yesterday on Earth Day.
Yeah, so our next question is, you know, tell us about a significant challenge you tackled with learning. So, you know, that could be part of this project or another project, maybe something historical that we're not aware of.
Yeah, look, I'm, you know, this has been the biggest problem. I think that certainly my program and one of the biggest problems that SEAI has tackled is trying to engage this particular group of businesses. Not only is it very wide and very diverse, but also, unlike many large businesses or public sector companies, small and medium businesses in Ireland have absolutely no obligation to reduce or report on their energy use. It's not required of them under legislation. It's something, I suppose, that we're appealing to people's better nature to do, to care about the environment, to care about their energy use, and to care about their businesses' impact on climate. We're also trying to make it to tackle the fact that there's an awful lot of information out there these days around the environment and around sustainability. And that can be really paralyzing for people to understand what the first step that they should take in tackling the impact that their business might have. So I suppose that was a really significant challenge that we had to overcome. And it became really clear to us as we were developing the Energy Academy that this could be the first step on every business's and every person's climate action journey. Whether they could go further than this, it really didn't matter, because there was so much learning that they could get from this that they could implement in their own business. So yeah, I think it's all been pretty challenging.
Like you're saying, it is those sort of simple first steps, because it can be overwhelming. I think a lot of us nowadays maybe are trying to do more for the environment, be more sustainable, maybe not use the tumble dryer much, and those simple steps, but like you said, it can be overwhelming for people. So, you know, it's getting those first steps in place starts them on the journey. And how did you find it? Obviously, you say there it's not an obligation in Ireland, so you have no stick to sort of hit people with, you know, so it's all carrot. How did you find that challenge?
Yeah, look, to me, I guess this is because there is no stick there and there is no regulation. It all became about incentivization and engagement. And you're really not going to get people to care about this as a topic or to engage with this as a topic if they don't really understand what you're talking about. Typically, the media will give a certain version of what's going on and what people can do. But like we were just saying, there's so much information out there now that simplifying things into a platform or into an offering that's really simple, really quick, and really easy to use, that was the key for us.
So this is obviously, you've just launched this now, so leading on to our next question, what are some of the practical steps that an organisation can put in place to promote learning?
Yeah, so you know, maybe people listening to this might be in the position where they know their end user, as we've said already, or they might be tackling something like we've done. But the first thing that I would say is get to know your customers' needs, how they learn, and what methods work best for them. That was a challenge, I suppose, that we had, because we did offer an awful lot of face-to-face training, which was really good for certain cohorts, and that's ongoing now. The Energy Academy is complementary to everything that we're doing. It's not to replace anything. But thinking about how people learn best and the new opportunities for them to learn, that was a really practical step that we were able to take. We could identify who our end users were, very large cohort, but then we could identify what the opportunities for learning were. And one that we weren't availing of was online learning. And then I suppose the next thing for us was to look at the gaps in that information. So, you know, in our particular area, it's looking at the gaps in information that's reaching the widest number of people around energy use, and sustainable energy. So, look, a lot of that was face-to-face discussions as well. We did focus groups. We had one-to-one interviews with people, you know, select kind of groups and representatives of different areas, so that we could understand what our customer needs were, and we could understand how they would learn.
So doing that groundwork really
Really important in the beginning, yeah.
That allowed you then to go through the project and that launch, which is, you know, a very, very engaging project, you know, and a wide user base there to engage with. So we'll be able to see the results of that come in over the next sort of 6 months, a year, and so on. So we're looking forward.
Yeah, we're really excited about that.
We'll maybe have to do an update call in a year's time, and, you know, measure those outcomes and all of the ROI and all those other terms.
All that stuff, yeah.
So moving on to our next question, what we've been asking people was sort of this series, we've been identifying learning leaders, you know, from different industries and different backgrounds, and really asking them advice that they would give to someone within an organization who wants to develop their reputation as a learner or a learning leader. Now, your role is not specifically, you know, you're not called head of training, you're not L&D manager, you're not one of those usual roles that we find people in. But what we do find across organizations that we deal with is quite often those internal champions and leaders from different business areas who sort of grab the bull by the horns, as it were, and really run with the project. So what advice would you give to aspiring learning leaders?
Yeah, I suppose, yeah, it might be good to consider the fact that this, you know, that isn't my job. You know, there isn't really anybody in SEAI who is tasked only with looking at learning and education. It's something that we try to keep as part of all of our programs. And one of the first things that I would have done to assist, I suppose, in developing a reputation for SEAI as a leading organization in this area is considering the message that we're currently broadcasting. So what were we currently saying to people, and what were people actually picking up? It was really important for us to have that information. So we did do, even before we started doing focus groups and looking at how learning works, we looked at what messages were actually reaching our audiences, and how those messages could be improved. The next step that I would say, make sure that, and I've said it a couple of times, make sure that you think about your customers and their needs first and foremost, how they're going to learn best and how they will engage effectively. The next thing then, I suppose, is consider what success actually means for you. We all have KPIs, we all have numbers that we want to reach, but what does, you know, what will success really mean for you? You know, I have numbers out of 200,000 businesses that I want to reach in the next year or two, but ultimately success for me will be identifying maybe a couple of case studies that have used the Energy Academy and then have gone on in other ways to engage with SEAI, whether that's availing of further training, whether that's looking for a grant to do an energy upgrade to their business, or maybe that's carrying out an audit on their site. It doesn't matter. Success for me, I suppose, is making sure that this is the start of an engagement, as opposed to getting the maximum number of people that we can onto our platform. And then finally, I suppose, make sure that what you're developing and what you're working works with your current offering. So from our perspective, I reviewed everything that we were offering to business, and the Energy Academy is really, it's a first step. It's an easy step for people, but it's also a platform or a springboard to doing something else and engaging further. It's a really, it's a first step in your climate action journey.
Fantastic. So we like to end these interviews with a bit of a wild card.
Okay, sure.
Now you're in the enviable position, I'm sure, you've had the opportunity to roll out a national strategy. You know, like I say, sometimes people are just engaging with a very small or very niche group within their organisation. Sometimes it's all their organisation, but you've had the opportunity to do something on a national scale. In hindsight, we also say hindsight is 20/20 vision. If you could go back and start the project again, what would be your real lessons learned or top tips for others when they embark on a journey of this scale?
Yeah. God, that's actually a hard one because, and I don't want to sound like we're boasting at all, but I feel like we've been really helped by having expert people all along the way. So maybe that would be my top tip. I when I started on this idea, I had an idea of how it would work, but it's not my expertise. Learning isn't my area. And myself and my team, we listened to the experts at every single step of the way, whether that was research in the very beginning, whether that was the businesses themselves who are expert in how they learn and what they want from us, or whether it was yourselves in advising us how online learning works best. So, that might be my top tip. Don't assume that you know everything. This process has taught me so much about how people work, how to communicate effectively with them, and what works and what doesn't work. So listen to the experts, I think.
Sound advice. We'll second that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time today. It's been really interesting to hear about the journey, hear about the Energy Academy. Like I say, people can look that up on the SEAI website, and we'll certainly be that at the end of this session. So thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Jason. All right. Take care.
So for all who's watching, thank you so much for joining myself and Andrea today. This has been the latest episode in our Learning Leaders series. You can find more on our website and on our social media channels, and we hope to catch up with you again soon.